Hello, everyone, and welcome to another meetup of Romania Power BI and Modern Excel user group, the fourth of the year and the 46th, I think, in total. We are celebrating this month 3 years of ROPAG existence, as we've started in February 2021, reaching more than 1.6K members and more than 45 sessions. Thank you all for joining and thank you for spending your time here, learning together with us when you could do anything else and be anywhere. Welcome to another session presented by one of the most knowledgeable people in the Power BI community, Parv Chana. Thank you, Parv, for accepting our invitation. I'm really happy to have you here. For our newest members, my name is Cristian Angel, and together with the other Cristian Prifti, ROPA co-organizer, we will be your host today. Feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn, and as we are sharing most of what we know about the Power BI, or at least the news, all the time. Let's go quickly through our agenda. We are on the welcome and overview part now. Then I will present you shortly our next meetups. Then Parv will have his feature session, short Q&A at the end. Then the ROPAG Enterprise DNA raffle that I will tell you a bit more in a few minutes. Then we will wrap up, stop the recording, and we can stay for chit chat afterwards. House rules. During the session, please make sure your microphone is muted and your video is turned off. Type your questions or comments in the chat area. Use a Q column in front of the question so we can spot them easier and address them to Parv. If you have any problems with internet connection, please drop off and join again. And this meeting is recorded, is both for myself, so I don't forget to start the recording, and for whoever doesn't want to participate in a recorded session. So if you don't want to be part of the session, feel free to disconnect, and you will see it. You will see the recording when we are publishing it on our YouTube channel. Next meetups on the 7th of March, next week, on Thursday, we will have the Romanian session of ROPAG with Radu Popa. He will do a session on Excel, summarizing data in Excel from pivot to Power Pivot. Then on the 28th of March, we will have the one and only Gustav Dudek with a session on Power BI. We haven't defined all the details yet, but you will be announced in time. And then on the 11th of April, Jay Terhet from Microsoft will come and speak about the new thing that was just released in February, visual calculations, and how to make DAX easier. As I said, most of our sessions are recorded and published on our YouTube channel. Go to bit.ly/ropag_history and you will see everything. This is the place where this one will be, this recording will be uploaded when it's finished. One more thing. In 3 weeks, SQL Bits is starting. For whoever doesn't know, SQL Bits is one of the biggest data conferences in the world. And we as ROPA, as user group members, we have some discount codes. So if you're using this code UG5DCUG, you will get a 5% discount if you are registering. I highly recommend you register even for the virtual session. There are lots of really good presentations there and lots of learning available. So feel free, use this code for a 5% discount. Since July 2021, we have a really good partnership with Enterprise DNA, offering on every meetup, every English meetup, so every month, 2 full annual Enterprise DNA memberships on their platform. In order to allocate these memberships, we will run a raffle at the end of the user group. Please scan the QR code to fill up the Microsoft form announcing your option to participate in the raffle. But even if you don't want to participate in the raffle, please scan the QR code and fill the feedback form so we can improve our future meetups. Don't worry if you haven't have the chance to scan the code. We will post the link in the chat during the session. So, coming back to the session today. For who doesn't know Parv, he's a really experienced BI architect and consultant from Canada with over 20 years in the industry. He's running his own consulting company, Peritus IT Solutions. I'm not sure if the pronunciation was right. He provides Power BI solutions to clients ranging from small to large enterprises. Parv has a diverse background across industries and has delivered customized solutions to meet his clients' BI needs. He's holding the title of Microsoft Data Platform MVP, and he's been working with Power BI ever since it was Power BI Designer, I believe, before Power BI, right, Parv? And as far as I know, he's also, or at least it was, but I'm pretty sure he still is a super user in the Fabric community, the former Power BI community. Thank you again for accepting our invitation, Parv, and the stage is yours.
Oh, wow. Thanks for the introduction. Awesome. Good to be here. That's so cool. All right. I think I'm going to first share my screen and go from there. And thanks, everyone, for joining. Really, it's good to be here. And I guess you guys can hear me okay, see me okay. See, yes. Does not matter. But if you can hear and see my screen, that's better.
Perfect.
Good. Okay, perfect. Awesome. All right. I think what we're going to today talk about, Fabric is everywhere, and we know how this has taken the whole data industry by storm, and sometimes it's overwhelming, to be very honest. And the one of the challenge what I've find out with Fabric is previously we just look at Power BI and all that stuff. With Fabric, it just brought so many things in one single kind of platform, which is good in a way, but sometimes it becomes really challenging. What to use, what not to use, how to use, and all this stuff. And today's presentation is more going towards using Dataflow Gen2. The reason why I'm doing a presentation on Dataflow Gen2 is from Fabric, because I have extensively used Dataflow Gen1 in my real-time projects. And it gave me an opportunity to look at that. Okay, Gen1 is there, which I'm already using. Some of my clients are using. How Gen2 is going to make a difference. So this whole presentation is all going to be taking a real-time example and try to walk through how that Gen2 has changed in Fabric compared to what we had in the past prior to Gen2. Before I go forward, I think one thing I want to ask here, maybe you guys can just answer in the chat, yes, no, depending on the answer. Like, how many of you guys played with Fabric as such, or just like as a part of your testing POC? Did you play with Fabric or not at all, or not even touched it? Like, you did, okay, Fernando, yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah, okay. I guess if there's no, okay. Perfect. Prati, of course. Not at all. Perfect. Okay. Yeah. I'm with you, George. I'm playing with it for last since as an MVP, it was available to us in private preview, but now we're using it in. It's not used in production and not yet, but surely soon. Okay, so I guess there's a few people. I would say some of those are using it. How many of you guys have played with the Dataflow Gen 1 as such? Like, do you guys know what Dataflow is? Or because I just want to make sure how I streamline my presentation. Like, you guys know what Dataflow Gen 1 Dataflow was originally? Okay, so Fernando heavily used. Yeah, okay, perfect, right? Cool. So I guess there is a lot of people already know what Dataflow is. Basically, it's a Power Query online. Nice. And I guess I need to learn from you some, Fernando. A few things probably you can help me then. That's good. So I guess there is a, I don't have to go through, because I did a presentation, similar presentation somewhere. And when I talked to people about Dataflow, they said they have no idea what it is. And when I asked them, do you know Power Query? They said, yeah, we know, but they never used Dataflow. So it depends on the audience. Again, so since we all know what Dataflow is, it's pretty much Power Query online. Doesn't matter whether Gen 1 or Gen 2.
Exactly.
But
A short intro is enough.
Yeah. So, okay, sorry. What we're going to talk about today is what is Gen 2. We're going to look into a solution using Gen 2, and then briefly I will touch upon how it is different than Gen 1 and some of the resources where you guys can go and learn more on the community sites and on all that stuff. I will share this presentation with Christian, and then later on he can share it with you guys so that you guys can have the links and all the stuff. Quickly, I think Christian already, I don't need to spend too much time here. He already introduced. Thanks, Christian. Like again, working with Power BI since it was made available, so no look back after that. I've been in a BI for so long, playing with data all of my career, but now I'm more focused into all things, I would say much so data platform. Originally very strong in SQL because that was my background, and so moved on to this whole new era of self-serve BIs and all the modern technologies. Of course, been an MVP for the last 5 years, and also super user since the program started, I think 5-6 years ago. So still spending time there. One of the things I always talk about in my presentations, I learned from Power BI community a lot. And if you guys haven't spent time going to the community forum, do take your time, go there and share your knowledge and maybe ask your questions there as well. There are great people who answer questions. So I learned a lot from there, and kudos to Power BI community forum. All right, let's get going. So first of all, what is Dataflow? We all know. I'm not going to spend because based on what it is being already shared, what it is. Of course, self-serve cloud-based data prep technology. Pretty much, it's Power Query online. No code, low code, we all know. And of course, if you are advanced M user, you can directly write code if you wanted to, which I try to do. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I fail. So again, depending on your skill set. Of course, tons of connectors, we know how those works. And if anybody does not know anything in Power Query or Dataflow, let me know and I can go more in detail, but I don't think that is the case here. Okay. Moving forward, like what is okay. All right, yeah. So what the Gen 2 brought to us, which was not in Gen 1, is one of the biggest thing was ability to if it's a low code, no code, you have an amazing interface, and but then you have no way to have the output go to your to the destination where you want it to be. Not necessarily today all the destinations are available, but the point is, in Gen 1, it has its own structure, how it was writing the data into the data lake. And you can only access through, you can surely go back in behind the scene and read the files and all the stuff, but the only way to consume the data is through either you have like a Power BI data flow connectors and connect to the data flows and read the data. But Gen 2 gave us the opportunity that we can have our data output to the destinations. I think 3 or 4 are available: SQL Server, Warehouse, Lakehouse, and I'm not sure Custo, which one is the 4th one. In today's example, we're going to look into having our destination to be data warehouse. One of the biggest challenge when I started working with Gen 1 was one of my clients has very, very complex transformation. And the biggest challenge was whenever you make a changes, you have to wait for ages because it do all the validation and all that stuff, and sometimes it times out. And and it was very, very challenging. And you can't stop in between, and you can't do like a, I'm going to come back to this and do it later. But with Gen 2, it gives us that opportunity that you can save it as in a draft. You can come back and start working on it, which is big, big win. Especially I gone through that pain point where saving takes so long, and it was very hard to work with, and especially you're kind of waiting whether it will go through all the validation or not, and then at the end of the day it turns out to be okay, it failed, and then you're again spending time in doing that. That's a big win in Gen 2. Background publishing, again, once if you are authored everything what you want, you're done your transformation, all the stuff, you don't have to wait there to see it going through the validation. You can actually publish it and let it do the validation in the background. And if something fails, you can come back and take a look. If not, at least you're not waiting that it is spinning and all the stuff and trying it to finish the publishing. So this is also a big, I think, win in this, which makes it different than what Gen 1 is. Refresh history, again, there was a big challenge. Believe me, guys, like I'm working with the Gen 1 in a very, very complex transformation. And when something goes wrong, the refresh does not happen, whether there's an issue with the data source or something went wrong. Trying to figure out from the refresh history where and how and what's happening was very, very challenging. It's like you're trying to hit and trial kind of thing. Okay, this might be happening because of this and all this stuff. So in this one has improved. Is it really up to the mark? I'm not sure yet because I haven't used it extensively, but it is surely better than what was in Gen 1. And the biggest thing is integration of this with the pipeline, which we're going to see today, how that actually changed, which is amazing, I think, feature in Fabric. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this presentation, because we're going to see all that fun stuff, end-to-end solutions. So that's kind of what Gen 2 bring us compared to what Gen 1 is. And of course, there's other things as well, but I'm looking from it. If I'm a Gen 1 user historically, how Gen 2 is going to change my thought process, my way of working, my addressing the, how to address the problems and all this stuff. So it's really, really interesting. But I don't want to go into this diagram because this is again Microsoft diagram. Basically, what happens is from the source, if you it write the data into the staging area if you have enabled staging done, and there are now a lot of discussions going back when you turn off the enable staging in Dataflow, or you should not do it when you're writing to warehouse. You should keep it. Basically, the staging is it behind the scene. It spins the Lakehouse and warehouse for the staging, and then once you work with Dataflow Gen2, it writes the data to those staging area depending on if enable staging is turned on. The only reason for that is to speed up the process for the transformation and all the stuff. In some places, you really need the staging for the complex transformation, and that's what this diagram tells about. All right, so what we're going to do today is this is the case study I came up with, which is going to talk about the whole solution. So basically, it's a real-time example I took from one of the solutions I have done, and this is a very common scenario. a company which has a multiple currency they deal with, and they want to get the daily FX rate from some third-party APIs, and want to update their FX rates data in their model, basically in Power BI. Ultimately, the goal is to have that FX rates in your Power BI model, so that you can convert your sales and all the stuff. So using the FX rate. So this is kind of the use case. What is the problem statement? Okay, that's a scenario, but what we're trying to solve here. The solution is usually when you have a third-party API calls. I'm pretty sure you guys have worked with APIs. If not, then most of the time the API service providers, they have some sort of a kind of a throttling, the things. They don't want to be somebody hammering their systems and taking all the resources. Sometimes they have, okay, one API call you make, you can only get last 3 months data. If you want to make, or you can make call every 1 minute, or in one call you can get only 10,000 rows, and then if that data at that point is coming up, in this case it's not going to be that big data, but like if too much data is coming up, then you have to make paginate and loop through to make those calls, right? So this is kind of the problem statement. And in this particular scenario, let's say if company has historical data for 5 years and they want to FX rates for all those historical dates. So how we handle that scenario, right? So what are the solutions? I think before I go to demo, I just want to quick through what are the before Fabric option, which we did. And in one of the scenarios still working on, like, Dataflow Gen1 is used to make the API call. There is some hacking done to delay when you make the next call. Pagination of API call. Lot of things are available in Gen1, and there's no doubt about that. But then you really need to know how to develop that. And there's a lot of blog posts and videos and all the stuff, how you do this stuff. But end of the day, it becomes super complex to manage that, in my opinion, whereas it does not need to be that complex, right? And so that's one of the challenges if in this scenario we were using Gen1. The another scenario is like maybe there's another third-party tool, let's say Power Automate, just saying, and that makes an API call, and then it sync the data to some destination, like maybe in a SQL server, and then we use that as a part of in consuming the data. But again, the challenge with that is then you are buying another service, you are paying for that, another license and all the stuff. Here I gave an example of Power Automate, but not necessarily everybody's using that. So it becomes like another challenge. Like now you have another tool in your whole tool set to manage and monitor and do that stuff. So everything makes it super complex. So this is where the Gen2 and Fabric and all the tooling shines. And now I'm going to straight into demo just to walk through this. If we have to do this today in Gen2, how I will do it. So what I'm going to do is, but before that, I think I'm going to see if there is any question anybody has just before I jump into the demo. Anything, maybe I see there's a lot of activities going on, but
there was a question from Russell. Has the online Power Query version got more user-friendly with the embedding into Fabric? And in my view, I just answered, and we are anxious to see your answer. But I haven't seen anything else than an additional button for the destination. Yeah. Maybe I missed it or I misinterpreted the question. Have you seen anything?
No, I think the destination, apart from, let's say, if there was no destination in Gen2, I would say the rest everything is more or less the same. What was in Gen1, I would say.
I do have a question. The Gen2 data flows are running a similar engine like we had the data flows Gen2 in Power Apps for a while? In a case you know.
No, I don't know about Power Apps, anything in those areas. Never worked in that environment. Sorry.
I was asking because the data flows as part of the Power Apps, I think were running on the Gen2. I can check it, and
Yeah,
they were
okay.
also having the destination drop off.
Okay, could be. Yeah.
Only that they were part of Dataverse only.
I didn't know that, but anyway, it was confusing with the data flows, Dataverse data flows, Power BI data flows. Hopefully, they will fix everything and stay to a single one.
Yeah, I hope so. All right, so let's. We're going to start with this thing. Is I actually try to, given like we have 30 more minutes left, and try to do everything from scratch. If not, I already have the whole thing set up in case something does not work out, which usually does not work out. I know in demos, but what I have here is I just created a workspace called Demo Romania, and the one thing is to use one thing I want to clarify up front. If you're using any of Fabric workloads, any of the features, you need to have a Fabric capacities behind the scene. So workspace has to be on the capacity. The good thing about Fabric capacities are they start very cheap, and there is a lot of variations and pay as you go as well, fixed pricing and all the stuff. Anyhow, I don't want to go too deep into that. I surely can answer afterwards if somebody wants to understand the whole Fabric capacity scenario. But the point is, you have to have a workspace with the Fabric capacity behind the scene to make it work. As you can see, this is the diamond that tells us in a premium capacity. Currently, I have a Power BI premium capacity, which I assigned to this. So Power BI capacities, which are traditional P SKUs or F SKUs, which are the newer one, does not matter what those are. It could be if you guys are already having P1 in your organization or any of the P capacities, you can still use Fabric workloads in that as well. It doesn't need to be F capacities. I have a P capacity in my tenant, so that's what I'm using right now. Again, the goal here is what we're trying to do is, okay, make this API call to get the FX rate. I have a third-party service which provide the FX rates. Take that data, store into the data warehouse in a staging table, and then run a process through data pipeline, read data from that staging table and store it into the final FX rate table, which will be then used by Power BI semantic models. That's kind of the end-to-end solution, what it looks like. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create here a new warehouse. The workspace is already created with the premium capacity. One thing which I want to point out here, when you go as if you are using Power BI as your persona, and if you try to go new and create a data flow, if you go here and click this will create Gen 1 data flow. So you have to be careful when you're creating data flow. That doesn't mean it's end of the world. You can delete it. But if you go from new to straight data flow, this creates, because nothing tells here that this is a Gen 1 or Gen 2, right? This is just a data flow. So what you need to do is either you change your persona or you go to more options. And then, of course, this has everything about what Fabric has to offer. And one thing we have here is a Dataflow Gen 2. That's what you want to make sure that you're picking it up, right? But before we go to Gen 2, what I'm trying to do here is I'm going to create a warehouse and give it a name. And let's just call it, to keep it easy, warehouse. It might take a few seconds. What does that mean is now we have created a warehouse. And if you guys are coming from SQL background, like as I am from SQL background, it was an easy win for me, not have to learn new technology, newer things. It just, for me, is another SQL server where I can bring my SQL knowledge and start working with it, right? So that's pretty much what happened here. So it spin up a warehouse. It has a SQL endpoint and all that stuff. So it's a blank right now at this point of time, nothing in there. And what you can do is now create a new Dataflow Gen 2 from here. Now, one thing is, if you create a new Dataflow Gen2 from the warehouse, it is automatically gonna make this warehouse as your destination for your data flow. If you create a, let's get out of here, and if I try to create a from more options and Dataflow Gen2, it will start with the blank data flow and the destination will not be configured. You can manually then configure it. So depending on, does not matter what you do, you can really set the destination. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a Dataflow Gen2 here. So we already have a warehouse, which is going to be our destination where we will be storing our data. And I already have a M code here, which I'm going to use for the purpose of this demo. I'm going to start a new blank query and I'm going to cut paste my code here so that we save some time. It's pretty straightforward. I will just quickly walk through this. So basically what I'm doing is the source is that API call I'm making, and then I'm going through this transformation process. And basically, end of the day, I have this is my base currency. This is the date, which is as of now, and currency, what the conversion rate is, and timestamp. This timestamp, I'm keeping it. When was the API call, last API call was made? It's not relevant in this exercise, but still I'm keeping it here. The difference, if you look at until this point of time, if you work with Gen 1, it is more or less the same, right? Same interface, same everything. The only thing is change is like you have it now new data destination, whether you can do it from here or you can set it up the data destination here, basically where you want the output to go. I wanted the output to go to my warehouse. So again, when you click plus sign, it has multiple options. These are the sources where it will go. Maybe tomorrow we have more options shows up. We don't know what those are going to be, but right now we're going to go to warehouse. And I already have a connection because I authenticated against it. But if you don't, it will ask you for authentication, and you go through that process. And that's again pretty straightforward. Now this is. Now I have two warehouses because one I was playing with yesterday, and that's called www. Not a very creative name, but that's what it is. So this is the one we created right now. And if you look at the options, it says it's a new table or the existing table. So if I have an existing table in my data warehouse, which I can create using the SQL, on the warehouse, I can pick that. But in this particular example, I'm going to go with the new table and then give the name. I think I'm going to call it staging. I just want to make sure my queries, which I'm going to run afterward, they have the same name. So it's a staging FX rate. So what I'm doing is whatever the transformation from this data flow is going to store into this table in my warehouse, right? This is where the Gen 2 is going above and beyond what Gen 1 has to offer, because this feature was not there. And we have a lot of options here now. This thing, schema options on publish, which I think came out last week, if I'm not wrong. Basically, you can change how it should manage the schema. There's a fixed schema or dynamic. I haven't played with it much. And now here in this one is the update method is like, do you want to, when this runs, should it append the data into the existing table we have, which we said staging FX rate, or it should delete that and append the new data into that one. In this demo, I'm doing the place. The reasoning behind that is I want to show the data pipeline as well, how we can leverage that. So I'm going to replace. What does that mean is anytime this data flow runs, it is going to go and from that staging FX rate, it's going to wipe that out and put the new data in there. So that's kind of what it is going to do. So save settings. At this point in time, we are done finishing what data flow is supposed to do. As I mentioned previously, we did not have the option whether we can save it. Let's say if I'm still working on, I have more things to do. I don't want to save it or publish it. I guess that's the term we need to use. You can actually pick publish later. So it will just save it, but would not do anything. If I go publish now, what it is going to do is it's going to close, of course, this window, which is great. Previously, it went through the whole complex validation, and you keep on watching this for hopefully it goes through. And I sat like in front of monitor, always watching, hope it goes through. And now I can publish now and move on with my other work if I wanted to, and let it do the validation in the back end. One thing I always, I never liked about it is when I do the publish now, it immediately run the refresh process as well. Maybe I want to publish, but don't want the data flow to refresh. At this point in time, as far as I know, there is no way. If you publish it now, everything goes well, it is gonna immediately start refreshing the data or run the data flow, which basically pushes the data to our staging FX rate in this particular scenario. So I'm gonna publish it now, and assuming it all goes well, of course, this closes. I don't know why this thing is showing up in here. That's interesting. Again, keep in mind, there are certain things with Fabric. Sometimes they play funny. Now it's gone. One thing is, if you guys don't know, if you haven't played with Fabric or played with Fabric, I don't know how deep. As soon as you create a warehouse, it automatically creates a default semantic model for Power BI, which is which you can use, and but you can also create your semantic models as well. Anyhow, that's not relevant to this particular demo. So Dataflow 3 was created, and it gone through the process. Now, as you can see, it is already refreshing automatically. Even I did not say to refresh, but it means the validation went through, everything was fine, and it is in the progress. Couple of things I mentioned, that in the refresh history, we have a lot more details. Once it finishes refreshing, we will see those things as well. So let's see. I don't know how long it's going to take. Should not take more than 30 seconds. In the meantime, let's see. Is there any question or anything I can answer?
No questions. There was a discussion about dynamic schema and how it can potentially create a lot of problems.
Yeah, that's what I said. That feature came out like last week, Christian, if I'm not wrong. I think, or maybe 2 weeks. No, more than 2 weeks.
I missed it.
Yeah.
To be honest, I missed it. It's the first time I see it.
No, it came last week or a couple of weeks ago. So that's why I did not have a chance to play with it, but I think that's going to be one of my next demo, I guess. So again, going back to it, it refreshed, of course, successfully. And in the refresh history, as I said, we have a little bit more details. Right now we have only one query, but let's say if we load more, it will tell if which one failed. Let's say we have 10 different queries in our data flow, 7 executed correctly, and if one is failed, it will tell it here, which is easy to debug that one. Previously, you have like this whole Excel sheet you download and try to understand where things went wrong. So that's the one thing. Also, since this data flow is writing to a destination and warehouse, it tells which one it succeeded or not. Maybe these executed, the data preparation for all different queries went okay, but when it was trying to write to the destination, it failed there. So it gives a little bit more insight on what is going on and where it fails or what failed. So it becomes very, very easy to debug. I wish this was available when I was working with Gen 1, because I have to spend a lot more time in trying to figure out when things didn't work out. So this is one of the great feature. I'm pretty sure there will be a lot more improvement on this. It tells you if you go in there in the where it wrote the data in the staging warehouse. I think in the warehouse, nothing written in the Lakehouse because our destination was Lakehouse, and how many rows it wrote and all that fun stuff, how much time it took. So good stuff in here. Now, as you can see in the data preparation, it went into the Lakehouse and write these many bytes. Now the question comes, why it went to Lakehouse? What it did there would have nothing to do with Lakehouse. As I mentioned about the staging, because if the staging is turned on, it uses that staging Lakehouse and warehouse behind the scene. That's what happened. And if you don't know where to go and turn off the staging, if I go back to my data flow, I think I missed to tell that. If you right click on there, on the table, we have the enable staging turned on, and that's what forces it to go and write in the Lakehouse. If I turn this off, it will not do that. So Again, if you ask me when to use this and when not to use it, there's a lot of discussion going on around this. I'm probably not the right person, or I don't have enough deep dive into this where it helped me, because this is very simple thing right now, simple data flow. I think once I'm going to put into more in my real-time production environment, then I will probably have a better understanding about this. If anybody has an answer on that, I'm more than happy if they want to jump and have an input on this. Okay, so now at this point of time, we have warehouse, we ran Dataflow. So if we go back to our warehouse, what we expect to see here is in our tables. Okay, the staging FX rate table has been created, should have 4 rows in there. No, it is different, Kristen. I think Kristen's question, I just look at that, is enable staging corresponding option for enable load in Gen 1? Yeah, that's why it's called enable staging here instead of enable load. Yeah, but I think it served the both purpose.
In Gen 1, it was requiring premium. As far as I know, even if data flows are available in Pro too. So if you would enable staging, it was the compute engine, the enhanced compute engine needed whenever you had staging enabled and you needed the premium. So
there were certain actions that were transforming it into a compute entity, like you were doing, for example, a merge, then yeah, it would become a computed entity. But thank you.
So, okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, let's move forward.
Okay, awesome. All right, so at this point in time, what we have is we have our FX rates in a staging table. Again, the goal is, if you remember what we did in the staging in our data flow, we said every time data flow executes, it wipe out the staging table and then reload the data. So it doesn't matter, we run it 20 times, it's going to clean it up, put the data back in. But the ultimate goal is we have to have our final table, FX rate table, where we will have all the data. Every time the data flow runs, pulls the data from API, put in the staging, and then we put the data into our final destination table. I can directly write data from Dataflow Gen2 to my final destination table and let it append all the time. I don't have to go through the data pipeline process, because in this particular simple example, that is not relevant. But because I want to show the various features, what is available within Fabric and how flexible it is to make things work together. And that's the reason why I'm doing this thing. I'm writing that into staging and note into my final table. So now my final table does not exist in here, but let's say I want to call the daily FX rates. Again, as I said, if you're a SQL guy, as I am, it becomes pretty simple. I can create my final table here by writing the create table command, but let's say the schema is the same as the staging FX rate table. I can just actually maybe run this, which I already copied. So it's going to be, I'm saying, okay, go to staging FX rates, take that schema and copy into daily FX rate. So that's pretty much empty. I think it's a case sensitive if I'm wrong. I'm going to run this. What it's going to do is it's going to, again, this is a standard SQL command, nothing fancy about it. It's basically created a daily FX rate table and empty daily FX rate table. I think it will refresh. As you can see, it shows up in here. So if I run into daily FX rate table, it's just in an empty table with the same columns as my staging FX rate. So now I have staging FX rates, which will get populated from their Gen 2. And this is my final FX rate, which will have the append of data all the time, right? Now, one thing I wanted to do in this is my business rules is, I think I should put it in the case study, in the demo or in the case study, that every day I will have a one FX rate for that particular day. Now, the problem here is if I run my data flow multiple times in a day and staging FX rates get populated, let's say if I run it 4 times for whatever reason, it will have the same FX rate for the same currency, multiple rows, which I wanted to avoid, right? I don't want to be duplicated. That's my business need. So what I did is here, I also took an advantage of stored procedures, which will basically do merge. Basically, if the record in my final destination table already exists, then update the record from my staging table. If it does not exist, then append the rows in the daily FX rate. So because that's again a very standard things. I'm going to create another. I'm going to create a stored procedure here. I already have a script here. So basically, this is an upsert. It's going to do, okay, look into the data. The time when I did this, if you guys are a SQL guy, you're going to say, okay, why did not you use the merge statement here? I can use the merge SQL statement. The reason I did not do that because when I did this demo 6 months ago, the merge statement was not available in the warehouse, so I wrote the stored procedure like this. But today I can use the merge statement, so I'm not efficient enough to change this. So basically, what it is doing is, if it's looking okay, if in my daily FX rate, if record already exists, then update the rows. Otherwise, insert the rows. I think I need to make sure they are case sensitive, if I'm not wrong. Okay, so this is a stored procedure again, pretty straightforward SQL. And now what I have is a stored procedure, which is basically does this job. Now, we have all the moving pieces in place, but they are not tied together, right? Dataflow Gen2 is running, gonna write data in the staging FX rate. It stays there, does not go to daily FX rate. It only go to daily FX rate, which is my final destination table, if I execute this stored procedure. And because that stored procedure take care of whether inserting the rows or appending the rows or updating the rows. So how I'm gonna stitch all this together? This is where the data pipeline comes in the picture. They are very, very powerful. They're going to stitch everything together and make it work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another data pipeline. Again, that is a part of Dataflow Gen2, and data pipeline is part of Data Factory. So basically, what I'm trying to show here is the different components of Data Factory, how you can leverage those. So Gen2 helped me easily transform the data, and data pipeline is pretty much stitching everything together. So I'm going to go to create a pipeline here because I already have a pipeline one. I'm going to create. I don't want to spend time in to be creative to give a name. So here it is. And once this runs, so now we can add the activities and all that fun stuff. So we're going to create the activities here. Add pipeline activity. The first, first activity I'm going to do is run a script. Again, I'm going to run a SQL script to clear my staging table. You might say, you know what, Dataflow Gen2 is also, we said, replace the data, and so that automatically clear that staging table. But let's say if that was by mistake turned out to be append, I want to make sure that my staging table is cleared up front before I run the Dataflow Gen2. Again, not necessarily this is required, but I'm just trying to show the different components. So what this is going to say, okay, clear staging table, all right? And I go in the settings within this workspace, and I want to run this command against my data warehouse. And what is my query, which is pretty straightforward. I think I have it here. I'm going to say, okay, go and delete from clear my staging, truncate my staging FX rates. That's my first step. So when pipeline runs, this runs the first activity. My second activity is now my staging table is clear. I'm going to run the data flow. This is the beauty, which does not, I had a challenge in the past. So this is so cool. Now I can leverage two things, right? Certain things can be done in pipeline, certain things I can leverage from Dataflow. So this Dataflow is my get FX rate data, right? So again, within which workspace the Dataflow is, it's a Dataflow 3, which we just saw. And that's what I wanted to do. So this is my next step. So once this runs, go and run the FX rate. So this clear the staging table, this runs, and it append the rows into my staging table. And now my final part is to get the run the stored procedure, which finally write the data into my final table. So we can call it update FX rate table. And again, the setting, what I'm trying to do here is, okay, on my warehouse, it should show up, okay, showing me my stored procedure. Okay, if I have parameters, I can pass that. So basically, I'm going to put this thing, this is my final destination. So end of the day, what is going to happen now, I don't need to go anywhere. I can schedule my pipeline to run on whatever the schedule I want, and it is going to take care of my end-to-end process, right? I'm not worried about how many times this data flow runs. Every time it runs, I will store procedure take care of that, whether to update the record or to insert the record. If this is my requirement, I always get one row and the most recent rate if I really wanted to, and that runs through Dataflow. So once this is done, I expect this to run, save and run. And it should go through the process of running a pipeline. I think this, okay, going to do everything. Right now, our staging table, our final destination table does not have any rows in there. If we go to our warehouse, I think I should open that in a different window. And if we go to the warehouse in our staging, in our final FX rate table, does not have any rows right now. But after that pipeline finished running, I expected those rows to show up in here as well. So there will be 4 rows, right? Right now, I think it's still running. Where is my pipeline? Pipeline 2, yeah, it's still going. So it's first steps cleared and get FX, that's running a data flow, and then it will write the final destination. So, all right, while this is doing, maybe we can just quickly see if there is any questions.
Yeah, there was a question from Fernando. I was wondering if the enable staging feature could be used for medallion architecture.
Yes, it could be, because then you are basically just reading the data from source and putting it into your just raw data in your staging or whatever destination you choose to. And then from there onward, you can use pipeline to process the data, if that works out to be.
Mm-hmm. And there was another one up front. So in your setup, you use data flows in the first load, then you use SQL for further transformations. And you just answered that this is the case here, using the store procedure and everything else. Yeah. But connected with another component of Fabric, which are the pipelines.
Yes. If my requirement was only Gen2, I could have done, but I just want to show you how you can use the various components. This has been executed, right? Because this is a very simple API. Sometimes the APIs come because you have to pick and choose, right? Sometimes the complexity of transformation is so much, like what I said earlier, start of the presentation, like I work on Gen1, very, very complex transformation. Now, I know that I can take some of those transformation back to my backend system, like in this case, warehouse or Lakehouse. I don't have to do that in my in Dataflow Gen1 because I can think where the best performance I can get. Maybe processing the data or doing the transformation through the store procedure is much faster compared to doing it in Dataflow Dataflow Gen1 historically. So again, this is just to show like how you can really use, depending on what your skill set is, to stitch everything together. So this is finished running. So if we run the query here, I expect it to be 4 rows, which is perfectly fine. Now, at this point of time, I think my solution is ready. I can schedule my pipelines. I don't need to schedule my Dataflow Gen2 in this case. If I schedule my Dataflow Gen2, it will not do anything for me because it will run, it will clear the staging, and the data will not go to my final destination table, because final destination table is just going through pipeline, right? And then we have tons of stuff in here, what you can configure and regular schedule stuff. So basically, end of the day, for me, coming from a SQL background, coming from Dataflow background, or Power Query background, coming from Power BI background, doing all that stuff within Fabric was so natural and easy. I don't have to look for any other third-party tool to make it happen and to work with all this stuff. I guess that's where it brings up the value. Just going to quickly jump back to, and then we can talk about any questions afterwards. So again, as I said, after Fabric, this is what turns out to be. Warehouse is used in store the data, Dataflow Gen in the warehouse, and all that fun stuff, right? Now, I'm not worried about all the, if my API only give me last 3 days of a data, I can have my Dataflow run every day, bring last 3 data through store procedure control, what I wanted to do, and I'm building my historical data of my FX rates through my pipelines. I just put this last night, where I found where the best value is, why Dataflow Gen2 turns out to be, I think, winner for me. If I'm using Gen 1, it becomes super complex. Third-party tool could be more money and expensive. Dataflow Gen2, I don't want to say it's cheap, right? Because think about Dataflow Gen 1 is part of your Power BI Pro license, which is, if you can leverage that, whatever it gives you in that. But Dataflow Gen 2, to use that, you need to have a Fabric capacity. It's cheap, but maybe you find it expensive depending, right? These are the things we talked about where Dataflow Gen 2 shines with Gen 1 and all the stuff. Incremental refresh is still not available in Dataflow Gen 1. I think it is coming if you want to use those kind of scenarios. That does not exist. I never use incremental refresh in Gen 1, but it does not exist in Gen 2 as of today, just to let you guys know. And I will share this with you, and where you can, share these links with your audience. And I guess that's pretty much it. The only thing I would like to have some of the feedback from you guys. I think I'm done here.
It's really, really cool, and thank you for the presentation. It showed how flexible it can be, everything, and I think it's a step forward, confirming Roche maxim of data transformations. Go as upstream as possible and as downstream as necessary with your transformations. If you can do some transformations in a warehouse, use it there. Don't use data flows, and only get your data there. It's a really cool way of linking everything.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, and totally. I am, because as of today, I have a lot of use cases to use this, because I have extensively worked on Gen 1, a lot of solution in there, and I'm working on a POC to convince my customer why you should be using Gen 2 and spend money on Fabric capacities and all stuff. So I think I will have a lot more details, performance, a lot more comparison, a lot more insights about how to overall change the architect, what some of my clients are currently using. So that's kind of the end goal is here. And I really enjoyed it, because it was a easy learning, because you bring your skill set and just use it straight up there.
Exactly. And there is a question from the other Christy. If we have 2 data flows in the pipeline that should run in a sequence, will the pipeline wait for the refresh completion of the first one?
It's a great question. the pipeline, if your sequence is to go one after another, I think it will run first Dataflow 1 and then Dataflow 2. But that's a good one. I never tried that, and I was about to do that. There might be a scenario on a condition basis you want to run Dataflow, one Dataflow if condition this, another Dataflow if condition is this, so it could be. So we will find out that. I think it will run. I'm not sure it will run in parallel, but I can't comment on that. But I guess it depends on if you put two data flows, they are not linked. They will, I guess, run
if
parallel.
they are not linked.
But yes, but if they're dependent on each other, then one will run first. That's the nature of pipeline, how it will work, right? That's the flow of the pipeline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, think about some three referenced queries, normal queries. The first one will run first, then the second one, then the last one, even if the evaluation starts from the last one. So what do I need from the second one? So it's probably the same if they are interdependent.
Yeah. Yeah, some people might turn out to be right. I don't know SQL enough, but I want the data to be the data. First data flow writes the data in the staging table, and then I want data flow, second data flow read from that staging table and then do the further transformation if it needed to be, right? Could be many use cases. Again, the point is there's so much flexibility available. Sometimes so much available. It's complicated what to pick, what not to pick, and then you have to do different iteration of the same thing with a different tooling and then see what best work for you in terms of performance, in terms of the scalability, in terms of the management and cost as well, right? Because sometimes maybe it is easy to manage, but it's expensive. Sometimes it is very, very complex. It's cheap, but very complex to manage, right? It's always that's where we as I guess in a solution provider has to find out what works best, right? Case to case, I guess. I don't want to use the word
So
it depends.
It depends. I wanted to say the consultant answer, but it always depends on the situation, on the requirements, on everything. Thank you. We'll go quickly through the raffle and then we'll come back for the wrap up. Let me share my screen and see how many people are registered for the raffle. So let me take this down. Let's refresh the data and see how many participants do we have. Refreshing. This is, very high chances of winning. 6 participants for 2 licenses. So let's get the names. Transform data. Of course, I'm using Power BI for the raffle to get the data. I wouldn't use anything else. And the entire Microsoft stack is used here. So from the form, I'm using a Power Automate to write the data in a SharePoint, and then with Power BI, I'm connecting to that SharePoint. So let's copy this and move to the raffle. And shuffle the names. And let's see who is our first winner. Spin the wheel. Victor, congrats. You are the first winner.
Thank you. Thank you
really
very
cool.
Much.
Let's shuffle the names again and see the second winner. Otilia from Romania. Congrats. Well, I'm really happy that 2 guys from Romania, even if I don't want to be, how should I say, local focused, but this is a Romania Power BI user group, and I love that the winners are from here. Anyway, if you didn't win, come back next month and we'll have another 2 licenses. Thank you again, Parv, for the great presentation. I loved it. Thank you everyone for joining. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to Parv's YouTube channel. You will learn a lot. And let me tell you, last week I was deep diving your playlist with disconnected tables. It's great. More than 20 videos only on this. Lots of great use cases. And if you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please subscribe. And whenever you cannot join the session live, you will get the recording as soon as it's available. Thanks again, everyone. I will stop the recording now, and whoever wants to stay for chit chat, you are more than welcome.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you.